Good morning. First, I just want to give a brief introduction of myself and some of my background. I'm the captain of the Corrections Division for the Collier County Sheriff's Office down in Naples, Florida. I hold both corrections and law enforcement certifications, and I'm in my 22nd year with the Sheriff's Office. My entire career has been in the Corrections Division. So in 2007, I had to oversee the implementation of our jail 287G program. We were the first agency in the state of Florida to sign on to the program. I believe FDLE had signed on previously, but they didn't utilize it. We signed on in 2007, and at that time, you could have both a corrections component and a law enforcement component. We had both components, both corrections and law enforcement. I oversaw the corrections side. The law enforcement side was taken away at a later date, but the GEM, what they call it now, the jail enforcement model, has stayed. So I've overseen this program and dealt with the 287G program since 2007. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go over what we do as an agency in reference to the question, are immigrants less willing to report crime? Now, this has been a debate for many years. It was a debate prior to us going into the 287G program. We knew that going in that this was going to be a question. So we've met with advocate groups, politicians, we've met with consulates and other organizations to discuss our 287G program. We met with them when we were leading up to it, letting them know what we were doing, how we were going to operate. One of the biggest struggles for a 287G program is getting everyone to understand how the program operates, what you can and can't do, and what you're going to do as an agency. So as we met with these groups, consulates, politicians, advocate groups, community organizations, this has been brought up. Is there a chilling effect, as it's called? And we've asked people, provide us evidence that there's a chilling effect, that they're less likely to report crimes if they're here illegally. To date, no one has been able to show any concrete evidence to us of that. So we've continued throughout the years going out and doing different community topics. As part of a 287G agreement, you have to do a steering committee meeting where the sheriff and Immigration and Customs Enforcement do an open forum. You're required to post it publicly 30 days prior to the steering committee meeting. And people can sign up to speak at the steering committee meetings from the general public, from advocate groups, or wherever. So that's one way we've looked at getting information on how we do the program. But for us as an agency, no one, regardless of anything, ethnicity, immigration status, anything, should be afraid to report a crime to law enforcement. When we come into law enforcement, or as a law enforcement agency, we're sworn to enforce the laws as they're written. We can't pick and choose what laws to enforce. So, for example, they say if you're doing 287G and you're cooperating with immigration, you're going to lose the trust of the community. Well, if you don't enforce the laws equally, it's the same thing. You're going to lose the trust of the community if you're not enforcing the laws as they're written. Okay. And it's the expectation of the community that as a law enforcement agency, we take steps to protect them from becoming victims of crimes. We work diligently. We invest significant in outreach, all neighborhoods of the community, to reassure everyone no one should be afraid to ever report a crime to law enforcement. We've put policies in place where it prohibits members of our agency to inquire about a subject's immigration status during traffic stops or consensual encounters. If somebody is arrested for violating, state law, local ordinance, federal law, and they're arrested and they're brought to the jail, at that time, everybody, regardless of what they look like, every single person that comes into our jail is asked, where were you born? Are you a U.S. citizen? We have the 287G program. If you state you're born outside the United States or its provinces, then you're referred to one of our 287G deputies who have attended training and are certified under Section 287G to act as a designated immigration officer. We do a lot of outreach to the community. Looking at that again. So we do, back to school safety celebrations where we hand out backpacks. We work very, very closely with our local women's domestic violence shelter, very closely with them. Our sheriff is actually on their board of directors. We work very closely with them. They refer people to us to get visas. and we work with them very closely. We do migrant education program outreach. We have a section of our county, which is called Immokalee, Florida. It is a heavily migrant community. It's a big farming community about 20 miles from our downtown jail. We do a lot of outreach out there. That's where a lot of the advocate groups come from, speaking on behalf of the farmers and stuff like that, because the way Immokalee works is depending on the season and what's being farmed is what their population is like out there. So we do a lot of public outreach out in Immokalee and different areas of the county. We do a lot of food bank safety fairs. We do helmet giveaways and give away lights for bicycles. That for a lot of people that may be their only transportation. Well, under Florida state statute, if you're riding a bicycle after dark, you have to have a light. So we've done hundreds of community inclusive events, from fun, safety-oriented activities for the children and safety education for seniors and families. One thing we do, which since 2007, we've done over 600 U visas for victims of crimes in our county. That's probably the most in this region of Florida. As to date, this year, we've done 43. We've had one of our victim advocates who worked with the subjects that she's getting U visas for, the victims that she's getting U visas for, receive an award in 2014 from Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi for the amount of work she was doing with U visas. So our look at it is, we don't want you to be afraid to report a crime if you're a victim. If you're a victim, we'll do everything we can do to help you. And that shows with the amount of U visas we've done. And then I reviewed the report and was looking at some of the policy recommendations, and I could pretty much check off every single one that we already do. But that's stuff we've learned over the years, from prior to the implementation of our 287G program to when it was implemented and continuously. Is your biggest thing you have to do is community outreach. Get out to the community, explain to them what you're doing and how you do it. Some people are always going to be against it. Some are going to be for it. Some are going to be in the middle. You're not going to change everyone's mind on what you're doing is right, wrong, and different. But a lot of them, or not a lot, when you explain it, some people realize that you're not just going out into the community and picking up people because you think they're illegal. We don't do that. Our policies prohibit it. No immigration questions are asked by somebody on a traffic stop or consensual encounter. They are asked once you get to the jail after you're placed under arrest for violating law. And then, so I was looking at some of this stuff. Cultivate a relationship with foreign consuls to enlist their help in explaining our laws and justice system is one of the policy recommendations. We met with consulate groups. We met with a group of about 10 to 12 of them, sat down and had a roundtable with them, explained how we do our program, how we do our consulate notifications to make sure they're getting notified. We went through that whole process. We have a minority affairs bureau that goes out and does a lot of community outreach and talking to the public, doing presentations. The sheriff goes out and does presentations on the 287G program. We've gone out, like I talked about a month ago, they have one church out there that is basically the main church / food pantry or anything out in Immokalee. We went out there, we met with their reverend, we met with their delegation, and we explained the program. Some of them, once we explained it and they understood it, they're like, well, that's not what we're being told. And that's kind of the hurdle you run into when you're running a 287G program. One of the hurdles you run into is we get the information out as much as we can. We can't go door to door and knock on every door and explain the program to every single person. We get it out the best we can. We meet with the advocate groups, whether you're against it or for it, and explain the program to them. We ask them, explain to your constituents how our program is run. We don't want you telling false things on how our program is, because all it does is creates more hurdles for us trying to reach out to those members and explain it to them. One of the biggest things with 287G is you're just picking people up that are illegal. I can tell you we don't do that. Even when we had the road patrol side of the 287G program, that wasn't done. Anyone that our roadside, when they did it, picked up, had to have them approved by ICE. So these were people that we knew that were in the community that had been committing crimes that were determined either not legally here or were legally here but subject to deportation based on criminal convictions. Before the roadside, when we had it, could go pick them up, they had to present everything to ICE, where ICE would sign off on approving to pick them up. So at no time did our agency ever go out and just arrest people for being here illegally. We've put a process in place. We're probably the longest tenured program in the country right now, because some programs have stepped down. And as of right now, we're probably one of the most productive, because the priorities change depending on the administration. We started under Bush, went through Obama, went through Trump. Now we're with the Biden administration. Things have changed through each administration. When you have a 287G program, you have to work under a memorandum of agreement per the section of the Immigration and Nationality Act. So we have to function based on what they set the priorities. Sometimes the priorities are not in line with the way the laws are written, but we have to abide by the MOA and what the priorities are of the current administration, or the current administration when they're in office.